All right, it's time for the paper review this morning. Let's take you through some of the headlines drawing attention on the papers this morning across Nigeria. We have with us an international lawyer, Olufemi Aino, joining us to do this review now. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you join us.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Let's start with the Punch newspaper this morning. Excess crude accounts, Serap CSOs flay INEC for $1 billion approval to fight Boko Haram. And Group say past insurgency funds not accounted for. I wonder what you make out of the story.
Well, you know, Serap has been the vanguard of asking people to give accounts. And this is one of their, what they are well known for. That, look, you said you've been spending money fighting Boko Haram, this and that, come and give account. And I think that's a step in the right direction so far.
But where the money is going to be brought out from the excess crude account, what happened to all the budgetary allocation that is going into defense and certainly even to the northeast?
Well, that's one of the million-dollar questions that's going to be answered as time goes by. That, look, whether there's duplication somewhere or whether all the budgetary allocations has been mismanaged one way or the other, that will come out in the course of the response which we are likely to get from the government. Whether the government will respond or not, time will tell, because as you know yourself, that sometimes it's one thing to ask the question, it's one thing for you to get the answer. Yeah. And looking at it on the flip side, I doubt whether this is just a white goose chase.
And one wonders really which aspects of security would the government use the money, the $1 billion to tackle? Will it be to fund the security operatives down there or the institutions? How really will $1 billion really be spent? Well,
ideally, don't forget to give them credit one way or the other. It is quite obvious that they've managed to curtail this Boko Haram one way, you know. I know it's not 100%, but to some extent, and one must give them credit. So the issue here is about accountability. That, look, what have you been spending the money on? And I think that is the million-dollar question.
Yeah, they're well equipped.
Well, whether they are well equipped or not, the government will. What the government wants us to believe is that, look, these people are well equipped. Nobody is suffering this and that. But by the time you talk to some of the officers on ground, they will give you a different version of the story. But if you have a responsible government, these are not supposed to be hidden. They are supposed to be transparent, and they are supposed to give accurate information.
Okay, we have another headline here that says, beware of politicians as 2019 approaches. CJN is telling judges. I wonder how very apt this advice is right now.
Well, I think it's a good advice, because don't forget, the season now by January, things will start hotting up a little bit, and the campaign will start, and at the same time, people who has intention of contesting one way or the other, they will start lobbying, and part of their strategy will be, should we go the other way? How are we going to, who are the lawyers we are going to use, and then how are we going to reach out? And what the CJ, the Chief Justice is doing is to say, look, to warn the judges ahead that, look, since people are going to reach out to you, try to be neutral, try to be clear, and ensure you are above board and you are not compromised.
All right, we have a picture of the Asurok Carol that went down. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, that was yesterday. It was a live transmission on channel, which was really nice.
All right, so we'll go to the next paper, The Nation, and the major story, of course, is still on the $1 billion approved by governors for to fight Boko Haram. So then we go at top left of The Nation. EFCC quizzes David Mark. Former Senate President was quizzed by the EFCC yesterday for some hours, but he was later granted bail. And well, they're saying that they don't want to give out the information on the reasons for the interrogation.
I don't know why they don't want to give out the information. You need to, sometimes you can privatize all these things by carrying the public along. Is it not the case that when police are investigating crime, they come on TV, if you have information, can you give it to us? And if they tell us that, look, the reason why we question the former Senate president is because of X, Y, Z. There's a possibility most other people who have information will come forward. And this is not about security of the nation. And you see, you can't have one for the goose and one for the gander. You see, once you pick them up, let us know why you pick them up. This is not a secret society. You need to be open and let us know. Let's know why you question
there was
the
a hint anyway that, okay, it was fingered in some transactions that were doubted to be shady, but no other information was given.
Well, let them give us the information first, and then we can make up our own mind as to the way forward.
But analysts sometimes have said that it is good for the security operatives or EFCC to carry out their investigations. Then at the end of it, then you can tell Nigerians whatever. Because sometimes when it is on the papers and on the media, sometimes there's sensation around it.
Well, I understand.
Tends to, you know, divert people's attention.
I do understand that. I understand that side of the argument. But the point is that, is it the people or the newspaper that will convict? Is the judge. And the judge will come to court with an open mind, not being influenced by what is said, being said outside the court or what is written in the newspaper. That is neither here or there. Let the people know. And this is the same EFCC that wants to show people that they are working. And at the same time, once they pick people in court, they drag them into their fan and do all sorts of things. And then when they pick the people you can classify as the top chef, then they try to be discreet. I don't think that's not the right way to go.
All right, so let's look at another story. Okay, right under the major story on the excess crude account, 1 billion naira is on the scarcity. Fuel scarcity will end nationwide tomorrow, says Minister. But then under it, another story, of course, looking forward to 2019, INEC registers 21 parties.
Wow.
Is that good? Or
well, in a country of 180 million, I think the more the merrier. But I don't know whether some of them, there's no point just registering them by name if they are not really going to be very effective. Otherwise, what you will get in the long run is that at the polling booth, people will start getting confused. And then you just get disqualified votes because there are people just printing here and there. And I think what they are trying to do is just to avoid unnecessary litigation where people will take them to court that you didn't. But they have to be at a point. I think they may need to sit down and see whether they're going to prune these people down. Because some of them, you know, they don't even have a campaign office in all the states of the federation. Talk less of having credible people who are going to come forward and say they are members of the party. Some of them will just assist on paper. Only.
Okay, let's get to the Daily Sun. Now we have, but on budget, Senate gives Fashola red card, says minister was not prepared. This was towards his budget defense, where he couldn't, part of one of the reasons that he couldn't defend about 10 billion naira he earmarked for some solar energy in some institutions across the country.
Well, the onus is on him. If you want to come before the Senate, you need to do your homework because people are going to ask you questions.
But he will really be unlike Fashola, where everyone knows that he's very articulate. He knows what to say at whatever time.
I understand that, but sometimes, you know, when the heat in the kitchen gets very hot, people start misbehaving sometimes. So, you know, I'm not saying it's not competent or whatever.
But Fashola is not someone known to be fidgety, kind of.
Yes, I understand. I think I agree it's articulate to some extent. But when you come before the Senate, you come with some of your officials. And if they ask you a question and you don't have the answer, there is no point dancing around it. You can lean forward and ask some of your officials, and they will be there to assist you. And if you don't have that information, what I know, because of places I've been and where I come from, is that you just say, I will write you formally to give that information, and you take your notes. There's no big deal about that.
Okay. And on double registration, INEC indicts Kogi governor, sacks 3 staff. Now, this issue has been on for some time, but when it comes to the eyes of the law, how much of an offense is this?
Well, I think it's, if you look at the Electoral Act, this makes some of these things contrary to the law. And what INEC is doing is to say that, look, if you engage in all these malpractices and what have you, or misconduct, what we're going to do is that we're going to use the law against you. And I think that's when, you know, there's been a lot of politics behind what is going on in Kogi State, allegations and counter-allegations here and there. And INEC seems to be coming forward to say, look, we are not going to tolerate this. We need to send a powerful message across, and it seems to be doing that.
Okay, so we'll go to the Vanguard now. The major story here is still on the 1 billion excess crude account application, but atop the Vanguard left, security threat. Magu Dauda appear before Senate committee to clarify some issues, especially the clash between DSS and
yes, that was quite interesting because I watched that yesterday. You see, when people start flexing muscle, at the end of the day, it's the people that get shortchanged. The two of you, all the security agencies are supposed to work as part of a team. But what you get in Nigeria is that there's a general lack of joint thinking, whereby one person, everybody is just behaving like a gladiator because, they want to send a powerful message to the president that we are working and this and that. And then you get one person, you see, all this unnecessary power tussle is not necessary. And I've said this before and I'm repeating it here. If you have power, you have to be very humble and make sure you are not misusing the power unnecessarily and oppressing people and do things. Just do the things the right way. What is going on between the FCC and the DSS is quite ridiculous to an extent.
And both are agencies under the
presidency.
presidency.
And they are even undermining their own integrity.
All right, so quickly to another story. Biafra, I will work against another war on Igbo land, Ohaneze president declares.
Some of these agitators, whether they are genuine agitators or militants, I don't know. But, well, I don't know. We just have to wait and see. I don't think I will have a strong response to that than just to say, let us wait.
All right, let's get into, is that all from the, Vanguard?
That's of course of time.
All right, now let's get to a grassroots paper this morning. At least it's good to have a story on ground. We have from the Village News here, we have Ogun 2019, one state, many aspirants. Now, how beautiful for democracy is this when you have so many aspirants coming out? One would say, well, everyone has the right to come out anyway.
Yes, so everybody has the right to come out, but whether they have the right to be wasting people's time and wasting their money, that is another issue. And from what is in the Village News there, that's an analysis of some of the aspirants, that what are their chances come 2019. And, the politics in Ogun State is hitting up some reasons because, the governor of that state has said that, look, I don't want to hand over power to somebody who he considered to be a foreigner. He should go back to this. And there are people within his own cabinet who also wants to be the governor. But if you go by the analysis in the Village News, what they seems to be saying, because sometimes the picture tells the story. There's a map of Ogun State. There are the pictures of the aspirants. And on top of that is one of the sitting senators, whose campaign or ambition seems to be gathering momentum. And on the best option, the best option is likely to be, but the second option will be somebody from Governor Amosu's cabinet.
Okay. Well, we still have all of those, and one of them is saying, I will not steal as governor. Would they be?
In a nutshell, Tolu Odebi is the chief of staff to the governor.
Oh, okay.
And he has an interest in becoming the next governor. And he said, when I get to power, I will not steal. But
he doesn't like former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi.
Yeah, exactly. So let's wait and see.
And one story here that that will be of interest to the people. Why I killed my wife? When I know there are so many cases like this in Lagos, in Abuja, that boils down to domestic violence.
Yes.
When someone gives reasons, are there reasons why anyone can justify why he killed his wife?
Well, most of if you ask any criminal, why did you do this? He probably has one explanation or the other. And don't forget, the law actually recognizes some of this as a defense. Take, for instance, if he's intoxicated and you come home, and as at that time there's a momentary lapse of concentration. And also there are some women who are suffering from what you call battered women syndrome, because they've been in an abusive relationship for a very long time, and then things can just spiral out of control suddenly, and things happen.
Okay, well, that's to end the review there now. I'm going on a short break, but we'll still let you stay on, Olufemi Aino, for us to start our first discussion. Stay with us on the show. We'll go on a short break and return in a moment for the first discussion.
And let's get into our first discussion now. Senate President Bukola Saraki will have to go back and face the Code of Conduct Tribunal over allegations of false assets declaration.
Absolutely, but this time around, he will be answering to just 3 out of the original 18 charges against him. The Abuja Division of the Court of Appeal on Tuesday dismissed 15 of the charges brought against Saraki by the federal government.
Now, the trial judge in his ruling held that there was no evidence to substantiate 15 out of the 18 counts as valid charges. But she noted that a prima facie case had been established by the prosecution against Saraki on the counts of 4, 5, and 6, bordering on the purchase of house number 17A and B at McDonald Street, Ikoyi, Lagos. All right, we still have Olufemi Aino joining us to discuss this issue. Now, a lot of analysts have said that when it comes to this kind of cases, thorough investigation should have paid to some of these things. But when you go and then you come back and you go and then you come back, what does it tell about proper investigation on issues like this?
Well, it shows there's something wrong, and it shows that you need to put on a new spectacle and look at things again. And what you get is that sometimes you have this situation whether these people are just playing to the gallery because people are complaining you are not working. So what they need to do is to pick people. They don't really carry out a thorough investigation, analyze the evidence. And also, when you want to prosecute, there are 2 things you need to take into account. One, you need to take account what the first thing is it in the public interest to charge this man to court? And the second thing is that you need to look at the evidence you have. Adding up, are this evidence enough to convict this person? If you don't ask yourself those 2 questions and you take the accused person to court, you will get all this drama that is going on. And the problem with some of these special prosecutors, EFCC, and all of them is that, you see, they rush to court, and at the end of the day, along the line, they start having problem amending charges, and the judge striking down this and that and what have you. So, you know, then we need to, this is not about, it's not about, we are not fighting for trophy here. You want to send a power. You see, public confidence in the judiciary is very important. And if you start undermining that, you're going to end up having problems. And you need to make sure that, look, we are not only taking people to court, but we get either we try to prosecute them and we get conviction. And also, the problem they also have is that they come up with about 13, 18, 29, 92 counts, and at the same time, they don't have enough evidence to sustain those counts. And then they end up at appeal, or at the stage of no case submission, their case gets dismissed. And that is what happened in this Saraki case. And, you know, you come to court with 18 counts, and the judges said 15, you don't have enough evidence to back up 15. Just go for these 3. Why don't you see, as a prosecutor, you need to keep your case very simple and make sure that you don't waste time. If you know, if you are charging this person for murder and you are charging him for stealing television, there's no point. Just, you know that once you get him convicted on that murder, he will go to prison for a very long time. Just forget about the television and concentrate the evidence on that.
It seems to be the trend really in Nigeria, because I asked a lawyer this particular question sometimes back, that why most of the time prosecution lawyers would always prefer to have many charges against an accused person. And he said that what they try to do is to bring so many offenses, charges against such person, so that if he walks away from one, he will be prosecuted for another one.
No, I don't think that's the right approach. Otherwise,
but it's very common in Nigeria.
You say it's very common, and it's quite disturbing. Because at the end of the day, if you come up with 93 counts against this person, you have to adduce evidence to back up each count. And if you are not careful, there will be multiplicity of counts, there will be duplication, then things will get mixed up, and then you know, you yourself as the prosecutor, you may get confused along the line. Why do you have to go for 93 when you can even go for 3? And also, once you get him convicted on those 3 counts, the punishment will follow. You know, the case will be dealt with in a very punctilious manner. And then, but if you are not careful and you start dancing around the bush and bringing this, bringing that, by the time it gets to appeal, you are going to have a problem. And the defense will make a drama out of it. That's why they don't get conviction in time, because they don't keep their case very simple. And at the same time, they don't even do their homework. You need to sit down and consider, look, this evidence, as a devil, you need to be a devil advocate. Looking at it, that look, the defense are likely to do this. And don't forget, some of these cases, the standard of proof is very high. And at the same time, you will get some of these big shots. They have money to hire powerful lawyers who are going to fight their corner vigorously. And in most cases, they are senior advocates of Nigeria, one way or the other. So, you know, they need to sit down and consider. And also, what they seem to be doing is just to show the public that we are working. By the time you bring this person, they drag the person to court. Few months down the line, they don't even have the momentum to continue with the case. And also, when you are selecting the lawyers who will prosecute, you need to consider, do they have enough resources? Will they have the time? But where one lawyer is the one that will be in Ibadan, he will be in Port Harcourt, he will rush to Lagos. When will he have time to go through the papers and make sure? That's why you have all these requests for adjournment, things not to being dealt with in a punctilious way. And care is not taken. The accused will go home knowing that nothing is going to happen. All
right, but we have seen cases like this, multiple count. It's a very common thing in Nigeria. Because when we listen to or read about cases in other countries, they don't seem to be. The way it works in Nigeria is not. Is it a problem with the judiciary in Nigeria, or prosecution process, or something?
I think it boils down to a lot of things. One of them is the training. Whether these people are really well trained, or they are just giving the cases to them on a paddy basis. That, look, you go and do this and that. Or allegedly, whether people are just even cutting corners along the line by saying, look, we give it to you, and then this is what is going to happen in the long run. So, you know, there are a lot of issues. And some of these issues are not supposed to crop up. And the other thing I will tell you is this. If you have a case management conference, at that case management conference, any issues, any problem about your case, you can identify it and it will be dealt with at that stage before the accused enter the box to give evidence and this and that. And if there's the case management powers of the judges too is very important. That, look, if there's any application, I want to hear that between this period and this period. And the other problem which I have is that in this country, there are a lot of secret justice going on. You know, you charge the person to court. The first day they appear, the prosecutor say do this and that, they enter their plea, or they may decide they don't want to enter a plea. If they enter no plea, then you enter a not guilty plea. And the judge says the trial is going to start from so, which will probably be between a month. You see, there is no sufficient time for the prosecution to carry out investigation and for the defense, for them to analyze the evidence by the prosecution or trace witnesses. Take, for instance, some of these white-collar criminals. Some of them will have laundered money from Nigeria to United Kingdom or America and use that money to buy properties here and there. It may well be you will need the conveyancing file from the solicitors in London that, look, by the time you receive the money to purchase this property, did you carry out a money laundering check to satisfy yourself that this money is coming from a legitimate source? Then you may need to call that lawyer to come to the country as part of the witness you are going to call. You can't do that within a month. You need time to do that. But what you get in Nigeria is that the judge just wants to proceed. Even in United Kingdom, I can tell you, some of these criminal trials, the maximum period will be 1 year, because they need to give the defense time to call witnesses, this and that. And along the line, there will be a lot of case management review. If there is any issue, let's say you ask the prosecution that, look, I want to see your unused material, because sometimes they will have taken statement from somebody, but they are not going to use it. And if they fail to disclose, the judge will say, no, you must disclose this, because that will help. And what you get here, that doesn't happen.
Okay, international lawyer Olufemi Aina, thank you as always for your analysis. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be following this development as it unfolds. We'll go on a break briefly, and when we come back, we'll be discussing the attacks on the EFCC one way or the other. Stay with us. We'll be having Nelson Ekujimi join us on that segment.